Hey everyone, we're gonna do some relax, bud. Here at the dog. Hey everyone, we're gonna do some NFL draft Q&A. Talk, you freaked out. NFL draft Q&A. Talk about the combine a little bit. I really don't have much planned, um, but I'm gonna share this on Twitter. So just give me one sec. Get you guys ready, knowing that this is going on and joined. Um, how do I share it right here? It's gonna be. If you have any questions, just go right to the chat. Yeah, so anything in the chat, ask me anything, combine info, draft type of stuff, really informal type of stuff right now. I'm not really having anything prepared to show you guys, talk to you guys about. Do you want to talk combine type of stuff? Maybe combine predictions, some of the stuff that we learned about guys not competing. It's like Tyler Johnson's not doing drills, right? So what that means for his stock, personally for me, as long as he has a good pro day, so he said that his reasoning for skipping the Shrine game was to get ahead on combine training, right? And then he's going to continue to train for the pro day. So he really, by doing the way he did his pre-draft process, extended his combine training for as long as possible, which for a guy who probably isn't going to run well, kind of makes sense. Kind of a little iffy the fact that he didn't play in an All-Star game and then he's skipping the combine drills. Like, our team's going to question him because of that. I don't think so. As long as he does well, interviews well, but really extending his combine training, his 40-time training, his agility training, which is a pretty unique way to go about everything. Um, I can't really remember anyone doing that. Like, they had the opportunity to play in the All-Star game, they passed it up. Had the opportunity for the combine, passed it up. So really interesting way for him to go about it. As long as he runs well, if he hits in the 4.5s at his pro day, which say he hits like 4.57, really that's probably like a 4.60. But if he can hit like 4.55 at his pro day, I think that does a lot for his stock, which I think would be pretty cool for him. There's a question in the chat: does Henry Ruggs break John Ross's 40 time? It's gonna be like the question of the week, I think. His 40 might end up being probably like the most watched 40 time, like, live, maybe in history on television, because the anticipation is that he might be able to break it. I'm going to say no. Like, if I was a betting man, I would bet no, because you're literally asking somebody to break a record that thousands and thousands and thousands of elite athletes have trained for. Um, but I do think he'll run in the 4.2s. I think he's a sub 4.3 guy. So if he doesn't break it, he'll be close. Um, I guess if I was to make a prediction, I would say 4.2, 4.24, which I think is what Chris Johnson ran, if I'm not mistaken. Um, so that would be my Ruggs 40 time prediction. Slightly missing out on Ross's 4.22. People think he's going to run the 4.1s. I think that's kind of ridiculous. I don't know if anyone who's not a full-time track athlete could possibly do that. Christian Coleman from Tennessee, who won the gold medal in the 100-meter at Worlds in like 2018. When he was at Tennessee, he was a 60-meter indoor runner at the time. So he ran the 40, he ran 4.12, which is obviously absurd, but he's the fastest man in the world. So I really don't think Ruggs is going to hit that 4.1 mark. But if you have any other questions, like I said, guys, go right to the chat. Ask me pretty much anything. The other big news that came out yesterday was Chase Young is not going to compete, do his times and stuff like that. Which for him, I think, why would you? You're pretty much locked into that. top 3 pick. I would be shocked if he doesn't go number 2 to Washington, considering they think they already have the quarterback of the future. And he's such a special player, especially on tape. And if he doesn't go number 2, I would also be shocked if he doesn't go number 3 to the Detroit Lions. He would be an incredible pair with Trey Flowers on the other side. So as far as him, I think I understand his point of view, his perspective of not needing to compete in the combine drills in order to retain his stock. Whereas a guy, like I said, with Tyler Johnson, it's a little bit different. He's kind of really banking on one day when it comes to the pro day. If you look at Chris Johnson and John Ross when the 40 overlapped, still looks like Chris Johnson has Ross beat. So the overlaps are interesting because they have to match up the exact frame that they started at the same time. So that's kind of, I don't know if I don't even know if we have that like technology. Um, I have no idea. But I also think that they start the clock on movement. So I think it's partially automatic timing. I think is what they call it because it's not a fully automatic. So like fully automatic timing, like when you're on a track when they have the gun, right? There's a trigger on the gun. Well, there's like a timer on the gun that goes off on based on sound. So the amount of time between the gun going off and uh, it hitting the timer and the ears of the athletes is almost exactly the same within like 1/1000th of a second or something like that. So like that's where fully automatic timing goes, and then obviously once they cross it. But I don't know about the combine. I think they started on movement, so it is possible that Chris Johnson kind of got a bad read and maybe ran a little bit faster than Ross. But I would have to double check on how they do the 40 time uh, how they start the clock at the 40 time. I thought I read Chason wasn't testing either. Yeah. So Caleb Chason from LSU, um, super explosive athlete, really bendy pass rusher, one of the more bendy guys in the draft. Um, had I think 9 sacks this past year, but really came on late throughout the season. So he's a potential first round pick too. I think he's definitely a first round pick. He's potential top 15 guy, potential to be the second edge off the board. I guess from his perspective, he thinks he's done enough. Um, I think that with a good combine, he could have ended up in the top 10. I probably think he's between 11 and 20 now. If he doesn't compete at his pro day time wise. What receiver? Question in the chat. What receiver has the most to gain or lose based on his combine? Kind of a broad question, but I feel like a guy like Lamb could lose a bit. Yeah, if Lamb runs slow, he'd lose a lot, but I think he's definitely locked in as a round 1 pick. Um, I'm interested to see what Chase Claypool does after he weighed in at 238. I'm interested to see what Colin Johnson. I think his combine might affect it because I think a lot of people in the league think that Colin Johnson could be a number 1 wide receiver. He has that type of potential, but if he ends up running in the 4.6s with poor agility, then that wide receiver 1 capability probably is going to be coming to question. He's a slight project. I think he has a lot to work with. I think he's going to be a good receiver pretty much right away too. But I would say that he has a lot riding on it, and I'm interested to see what happens with Chase Claypool as well after weighing in at 238 pounds, up 9 pounds since the Senior Bowl, which is ridiculous. From 2017, the receivers who have the best rate in contested catches are supposed busts. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, Marcel Aitman, Kelvin Harmon, definitely not a bust. Kelvin Harmon in the last 8 games had like 350 yards as a rookie with a rookie quarterback. And N'Keal Harry. While receivers with the lowest rate have some success, Calvin Ridley, Marquise Brown, Deontay Johnson. T. Higgins has a rate of 20% over total catches. You think that it is a concern? No, I would not say that's a concern. So the reason that happens, I think, is in college, if you're forced into contested catches, it means you're not separating. And then you go to play NFL corners and you're not separating even more. You know what I mean? So the windows get even tighter on these guys who aren't separating a lot. That's in some cases. That would be with, I would say, Marcel Aitman. Never really had the type of separation that you look for. I would say in college, N'Keal Harry on anything on the vertical plane or outside the numbers, like along the sideline, couldn't really separate. So that's why he was also in the contested catch areas a lot in college. So I think separation is the issue with those guys. I think Harmon's definitely not a bust. I thought he looked really good as a rookie. And obviously Harry and Whiteside, they could obviously still improve. But then when you're talking about guys who have poor contested catches, like Calvin Ridley and Marquise Brown, it's because they were separating so well in college. They never really were in those situations. So that's going to translate more. That's going to translate more immediately to the NFL, as these like bigger guys need to kind of learn how to separate, learn how to run routes at an NFL level. Those guys already could do it when they were rookies. And then they could also improve on it as they go. But that's why that's the more immediately translatable, trait is the separation in the route running. Is this the best wide receiver class in history? It's the best one as prospects since 2014, I would say. They obviously could end up as the best receiver class in history, as they go. But I think as a group of prospects and only judging them as prospects, it's the best one since 2014. So what's that? 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 26, six drafts. Best one is at least 6 drafts. JJ Taylor was listed at 5'5", which is just insanity after watching him run through some guys on tape. I guess it's not a huge difference from 5'6", but does it hurt his stock? I wouldn't say it hurts his stock because, like you said, he was listed at what, 5'6", or maybe 5'7". So I think NFL teams probably already knew he was 5'5". It's not great for his stock, but his height was never great for it, right? So I don't think it hurts it in any way. But yeah, any other questions? There were a few other big things that's happened in the last couple of days. Mekhi Becton, the offensive tackle from Louisville, checked in at like 6'8", 364 with 90 plus percentile arm length, wingspan, and hand size. So just an absolutely massive human being. And he supposedly looked really lean. So he kind of carries 364 pounds really well, which is kind of crazy. And I think NFL teams, when they see him, are going to actually see kind of what the current version of Trent Brown is. When he kind of got to the league, he was a little bit kind of sloppy, so he kind of needed a couple years to get right. But as far as his body goes, so he, I think, could all based on his measurements and measurements only, if he moves at an average rate for an offensive tackle in the NFL at that size, is going to make him a top 10 pick. Andrew Thomas, 35-inch arms are out of control. That is pretty long. Do you think Laviska Shenault has a chance of falling into the middle of the second round because of how great this class is, and he'll be more of a gadget guy his rookie year while he learns the ropes? Middle of the second round. Where you said has a chance to do it, I would say yes. Yeah, that's a possibility. We saw DK Metcalf drop to 64, and he was a superior wide receiver prospect to Laviska Shenault. So the possibility is definitely there. And part of the reason that DK fell was injury concerns. Shenault has had injury concerns throughout his 3 years in college as well. So it's definitely a possibility. I wouldn't necessarily think it would be because he's seen as a gadget guy, because his potential is really high. And I've seen him do NFL receiver things. I think it would be because of medicals. How fast do you think Jordan Love's stock is about to rise this week? Fingers crossed that the Chargers fall in love with him. I don't know if Jordan Love's stock is going to rise that much. If that was going to happen, it was probably during the Senior Bowl, more so than the Combine. I think they know he's a pretty good athlete. But Herbert is measured in really well. And then I think the top two guys are the top two guys. The only thing that could really help Jordan Love is if Tua's medicals come back negative. I don't know if it's going to really rise that much during the combine. I think his opportunity for that was down in Mobile. Do you have a plan to post all 22s of the DBs? Hard to try to evaluate by the broadcast cam. Yeah, I'm trying to get to every position. I want to obviously hit the receivers because that's kind of my brand first, and then kind of move on to other positions. I'll probably go to tight ends next. It takes a really long time to do like the O-line stuff, and just doesn't hit. It just doesn't view as well. So corners will probably be the next one after tight ends. I think it makes the most sense. Corners and safeties. I think it makes the most sense because that's like kind of like you said, it's the position receiver and DB are the positions where you lose them in the broadcast view. So the all 22 helps the most. So I think that's what will um, be viewed the most, and is also the most helpful for the community. So receivers, tight ends, DBs, route basically anyone when it comes to passing game. Also it helps with quarterbacks, but that would literally take a century. I missed one. How do you feel about Quintus Cephas? I like Cephas. I think he's a day three guy though. Early on day three, and pretty impressive athlete. Uh, some people have comped him to Allen Robinson. I think that's a little aggressive, but as far as the middle of this class goes, I like it. I would imagine that he's one of the 27 that Daniel Jeremiah said has a chance to go in the top 3 rounds. But I kind of like him in that fourth round range, maybe the end of round 3. What position do you play? I played wide receiver in college. I played tight end in college as well. So I played growing up. I was a guard. 7 years at Pop Warner, and I was D end. And then I got to high school. I played D end, and then played guard when I was a freshman on the freshman team. Moved up to tight end because we were a double wing team, so it was close as I could get to receiver. Junior year, I was a tight end, and then I was the number 3 receiver because we ran the I. We had a different coach every year. And then my senior year, we were straight spread, and it was out wide. So I got to college, and I was a wide receiver for 2 years, and then my third year, I put on a pretty good amount of weight. I played tight end, and then the final year, our tight end depth improved, so I went back to receiver. I still dabbled at tight end that year though, and then played a lot of special teams. And then in rugby, which I played second row and outside center. Do you think Antonio Gibson's skill set could translate better as a wide receiver / gadget player in the NFL? So it's so hard because I like the way he runs outside zone. Um, I want him to get the ball. I don't really care how he does it. Backfield reps, jet sweep reps, play some wide receiver, kind of like, so he took over Tony Pollard's role at Memphis. I think he could be Tony Pollard, uh, like do a similar role to Tony Pollard's NFL role for whatever NFL team he gets on. I like Antonio Gibson. He's a freak. Personal favorite wide receiver in this draft class. So like not my wide receiver one. I'd probably say Denzel Mims from Baylor. Kind of been on his train for a few years now. I've been really high on him throughout the whole process. I also like KJ Hill from Ohio State. I played fly half and fullback in rugby. Ugh, no, I used to love my fullback. He was a great athlete. I was probably one of the more athletic forwards, so I would try to play defensively. We had one kid who was a great defensive player, so I tried to play next to him as much as possible, so I could kind of take like fewer reps when it came to defense. And then when we would get the ball, I would supposed to be like kind of the pack, but I would kind of just keep moving outside, so I could be next to the fullback because he just bust open plays. I played tight end also. Oh, all county high school. I'm a junior. Oh, it's good. Good. Oh, Tift County High School. I'm a junior. Good. So keep at it, man. I think you work hard enough, you could play in college. I say that to everybody. You just have to do the right things and eat right, listen to your coaches, and sleep right, and get your grades right. I think if you work hard enough throughout high school, you can play college ball. I think I'm actually a pretty good example of that. Who's the biggest sleeper in this wide receiver class? All right, so some people like look at a sleeper as like a day 3 pick, like a 4th rounder. Like some people would say that um, Gabriel Davis from UCF is a sleeper. to me, a sleeper is like somewhat like a deep sleeper, like a middle to late day 3 to undrafted free agent that if I say the name, you're probably not going to know his name. For me, so like no one that went to the Senior Bowl would be a sleeper, I guess. For me, that would be Aaron Parker from URI, who went to the East West Shrine game, and his teammate / cousin Isaiah Coulter, who also went to URI. They're both at the combine. I would say biggest sleeper. Um, hmm. I think Jalen McCluskey could be a pretty good sleeper from Tulane. At one point in time, he was a second leading receiver on Oklahoma State when he was a sophomore before getting hurt one year, transferring, sitting out, and then fifth year senior this past year at Tulane. He didn't go to any All-Star game. I'd also say Omar Bayless from Arkansas State was one of the more like most productive receiver, maybe the most or second most productive receiver in the country this past year, or I think it was second in yards after Jamar Chase, but Jamar Chase played in a few extra games. And I also like Hasise Dubois from Virginia. I think I've mentioned before. I think he had 76 receptions this year and 0 drops. It's going to be big for him to run the 40. I think he is, if he's in the low 4.6s, he probably could get drafted. Aaron Parker looked great at the Shrine game. I heard that he did. Aaron Fuller is the Washington receiver. That's a suggestion in the chat. I love Aaron Fuller's film from last year. I don't think he made any improvements this year. I thought that he was going to, especially with Jacob Eason at quarterback, but I think both of them kind of uh, didn't progress and develop as well as I thought they were going to. But I like Fuller. I think he's a draftable player for sure. If you have any other questions, just trying to think of everything that happened at the combine recently. Joe Burrow and Jake Fromm have small hands. I really don't give a crap about that. If you're judging a quarterback by hand size and not what they showed on film and what they can do on film, it's ridiculous. Joe Burrow grew up playing in Ohio and played 3 years or whatever it was at Ohio State. It's like I think he can throw in the cold. Apparently, that's what, or like when it's slick or bad weather. I think that's what the actual concern is with hand size. I think it's pretty ridiculous. From I never had the feeling that he can't like throw a good spiral. I mean, he's not a deep ball thrower as it is, but that's because of arm strength, not because he has small hands. So if I don't put any stock into that. A few guys, like I mentioned earlier, Chase Claypool waiting at 238, kind of embracing like a big slot type of role, someone who could also be schemed into schemed into blocking. I think that'd be really good for him as a player because he is a pretty good blocker. Just dominated corners, and then I think that could translate to safeties, overhang players, and even maybe some smaller outside backers that he could really get physical with, especially if he's weighing 240. It's not going to be like a day one in line or H back type of blocker, but you get him into bunch sets, you get him in the slot, condensed, nasty alignments. Like he's a dude who could do it. And I think he's a top 100 pick too, as well. I would say. A few other things that happened. Michael Pittman had a really good weigh-in. Jalen Reagor weighed in at 206. Excuse me, Jalen Reagor. He corrected everybody on Twitter today. Weighing at 206, which is pretty insane. Did not expect that. That's great size. It's great weight for him. If he's still able to run low 4.3s or even cut into 4.2s, that would be extremely impressive for someone of that weight. What can Mims do to sell his double moves more? He seems to not sell his double moves very often. I think he does a really good job of them on stutter and goes. A really good job. They got a lot of production on that on their play action stuff. So I like him there. So I think that probably the answer would be keep his double move stuff on the vertical plane. And he had a really good sluggo against Oklahoma. So keep his double moves going vertical rather than in breakers or crossing in breaking type of stuff. Reagor is rocked up. Yes, he is. What are the major keys to evaluate wide receivers? Yeah, so could go on. I could do an entire live stream about this. What I want to see is can they beat press coverage in the NFL? If you're going to play on the boundary, you need to. Can they separate with their route breaks? Can they anticipate leverage? And then can they that all of that leads into can they separate, right? If you can separate, I want you to be able to catch the ball. If you can't separate, you need to separate in the air, right? So there's different ways to separate, but that's kind of like the basis of how I look at things. Like I'm going to evaluate uh, KJ Hamler differently than the way I evaluate Colin Johnson, because KJ Hamler at his size is going to be a slot guy. I want him to be able to run, separate, run after the catch, right? Colin Johnson, he's going to play on the boundary. I want him to beat press coverage, right? I want him to defeat contact in the stem. I want him to be able to break enough where he can create a passing window, a clear and obvious passing window. So when you look at the all 22, say there's like a crossing route and you can see from the end zone, is there a window that you're seeing from the quarterback's vision that I could throw that football into? You have to be able to create a clear window, and then the separation is going to come in the air. So like as he attacks the ball, if the ball's up top, can he go get it? If it's over the ground, can he go get it? And that's something that I think that particular prospect can do really well. So that's kind of the major keys when it comes to how I look at different receivers and like the major keys to evaluate them. Like I said, I could talk about that for hours and hours and hours and hours. Maybe I will one day. If you guys want me to, I definitely will. I could take it through an entire stream of like games of KJ Hamler or Chase Claypool or whatever. Yeah, if you have any questions, guys, and just feel free. A few other like receiver thoughts that I've had is like the guys I end up liking a lot aren't necessarily the guys who separate the best. So DK Metcalf last year, right? So the rhetoric around him was like, oh, he can only run go routes. Say, okay, first of all, not true. Second of all, being able to go deep and finish deep and run with the ball in your hands after you catch it is the most valuable thing a wide receiver can do. It's not only the most valuable thing a receiver can do, it's the most valuable thing anyone on the football field can do outside of a quarterback throwing it. You know what I mean? A receiver being able to do that changes the way coverage is aligned, which opens things up for everybody else, every other receiver, and opens up the running game because now you have to have a safety to his side. Are you going to have a safety to the other side? That split safeties, now you're light in the box right away, right? Just basic math, right? As long as you have every gap filled by first and second level players. You know what I'm saying? So it's the most valuable thing a receiver can do. It's the most valuable thing anyone outside the quarterback throwing can do. So if you can do that, if that's the only thing you can do, you will play in the NFL for 12 years. Look at Deshaun Jackson, right? Look at Ted Ginn. You have a very high baseline. So if you can do that, I'm willing to look past other deficiencies that you might have as a receiver. So one example would be Denzel Mims. Not great on in breaking routes. I think the potential's there because I've seen him do it, just inconsistent. But the fact that he can go deep and win deep, that's an A+ in the most important category, number one. You know what I mean? That's the top of the list. So when it comes to that, every receiver is going to have different evaluation process, and that's one thing to keep in mind is that just because Van Jefferson is the best or is a top 3 route runner in the class doesn't mean he's going to be a top 3 receiver on my board and I like Van Jefferson. He's probably going to be like top 10 or top 12. But that's not going to mean he's going to be top 3 because can he win deep? I don't necessarily see that on his tape. Tyler Johnson, good route runner. Can he win deep? I don't see that on his film either. So those are guys who, like, the most valuable thing that a receiver could do, they're not very proficient at. So their grade's going to get hurt a little bit from it. So like I said, every receiver evaluation is going to be a little bit different. Well, not blocking, second level blocking. I know you were a big Dante Pettis guy coming out. Why do you think you didn't progress at all this season? Yeah, I could go on about that too. So obviously, he had a really good rookie year. basically played, like was banged up, got hurt one game. So the next game, so he sat out that game. Next game, he played one snap. And then he sits out a few weeks. But basically, his rookie season, he played like 9 actual football games, and he had like 570 yards and a bunch of touchdowns. And then this year, number one, he was hurt during training camp, and then number two, he was hurt during the season. Which so like that obviously is going to hurt your standing on the depth chart. That's going to hurt your development from a rookie to a second year player. And then they go out and get Emmanuel Sanders, and basically his role in the offense just went completely away. And that was despite catching the game-winning touchdown pass in one of their games and catching a touchdown pass on Halloween on like an awesome play. So I think there were still the flashes that were there. It was just not consistent because of health, because he lost development time, and then he ended up losing his spot because they went out and made an aggressive move to win a Super Bowl, to go out and get a veteran, proven, 31-year-old Emmanuel Sanders, pretty much a stud like receiver, number one wideout. So I think that's kind of what played into it the most. I would be encouraged for Pettis going into year 3 because right now he's healthy, so he'll be healthy for the whole offseason. They might not sign Emmanuel Sanders back. I think there's a big chance that next year we're looking at like Debo. There's a decent chance that we're looking at Debo, and then like Bourne and Pettis. And then we'll see kind of after that, like Richie James, maybe a draft pick, Trent Taylor type of thing. He seems to lack passion. I disagree. 100% disagree. Yeah, I wouldn't be too sure that Jalen Hurd is going to play next year, based on some things that I've heard. I don't think they're secrets either. I think it's out there. No, he doesn't lack passion. That's ridiculous. That is a ridiculous narrative around him. It's so stupid. It's so stupid. I think that if it's Pettis on the pass to Sanders, the 49ers win the Super Bowl. I would have to look at the all 22 to give a strong answer about that. By the way, the Jalen Hurd thing is he hasn't been medically cleared. It's been like 6 months. So it's about to be March. It's difficult to come back and play in August if you've sat from 1 August to the next March. Come back and play in August. Difficult. Not going to comment on that. But yeah, the 49ers will be interesting to see. I think Pettis will have a big year in year 3 for sure, especially with Garoppolo's. We've seen that Garoppolo is a good quarterback, not elite, not great, but good enough that he could support multiple wide receivers. Which wide receiver would you most want on the Patriots besides Ruggs? I like Justin Jefferson, pick 23. Been all in on him for a while, like Denzel Mims as well. Those are probably the top 2, specifically for the Patriots and their needs. I think that those 2 fit the most. I would take Henry Ruggs. I'd trade up for Henry Ruggs if the opportunity presented itself, though. What's your ranking of Gabriel Davis? I actually haven't done his final grade. He's one of the few I still haven't gotten to. Yeah, Justin Jefferson looks really good. That'd be interesting. Yeah, that'd be awesome. He'd be really good for them. I think he fits the system really well. His players picked up on multiple offensive systems in LSU. Very easily. So I wouldn't be intimidated for him to pick up the Patriots. I think it would work out really well. And his separation, especially for a guy who's like 6'1.5" or whatever it is, with like good weight, is really, really impressive. He is super, super flexible for how long his legs are. Would you give up a first for Diggs if he's on the market? For the Patriots at pick 23, 100%. I'd give up pick 23. I'd give it pick 23 and a 3rd-round comp pick, to be honest. He changes the whole complexion of the team, not only the offense. 100% changes the complexion of the team. They will look awesome next year. If you go into that, first of all, the Tom Brady wants weapons narrative. You could just go out and get Stephon Diggs, the number one route runner in the NFL. You have Stephon Diggs, Julian Edelman, uh, a second year N'Keal Harry, who's going to be better in year two. He's healthy. He's going to have a full offseason development. Like last year, he was hurt in camp. Full offseason of development, continuity with the receiver coach, with Troy Brown going from assistant receiver coach to full time, like full receiver coach. Um, and then like he's going to be 21 to turn 22, so he's going to be better next year. So you have Diggs, Edelman, and N'Keal Harry, which were kind of like your top three. I really like the idea of that. Uh, I would like them to sign a vet tight end if it's possible, and then you have still have James White, Rex Burkhead. That gets Tom Brady back, and light the scoreboard up a little bit. The dog's moving the laptop. See this guy? Jefferson will complement the offense well. Yeah, I agree. Who was the receiver that disappointed you the most? Based on the receiver prospect that disappointed me the most. I would say Brandon Ayuk from Arizona State. I heard some late round one, early round two stuff before I watched him, and I think he is that. So most of his production came on deep routes and yak. He was the second. I think he was the best yards after catch receiver in the country. And as I kind of mentioned, that is super valuable. But almost all of his production came from it. And I also have concerns about his ability to do that in the NFL, like the translation of it from his college production in that area to his NFL production in that area, because he really struggles, number one, to get out of his stance, and number two, with contact and press coverage. So in the NFL, a lot of times he was doing it was against free releases. That is where he's going to thrive. But based on NFL scouting reports and how detailed they are and how to cover each player differently, if they're able to press him and really alter his stem, he's not nearly as effective. And he was only really effective on those deep routes and then yards after the catch. So the yak's not going to go away. You could still throw screens to him, and if there's they're playing off, you could throw slants to him, and he could be really dangerous. But I think there's like a glaring weakness in his game, and it's beating press. So I have concerns about his ability to do the thing he does best in the NFL. Yeah, so it's interesting about Ayuk. He has the wingspan of a that's 6'9". He's only like around 6 foot, which is insane how long his arms are. He should be better when it comes to contested spots, and maybe he will be. um, who knows? That's obviously remains to be seen. But the comment is he didn't seem to like he finished contested catches that often either. I think that his projection to the his potential in that area is really high because of his length. And he's a pretty like broad shouldered kid, so that could obviously help him too when it comes to boxing out and everything like that. But his potential in that area is really high. Do I think he's more suited for the slot? Ayuk, yes, definitely. I want him to have free releases, stretch the field from the slot. You stretch it from the slot, you open up a lot of stuff in the middle, underneath, in the middle of the field, which I think could really help. And then he's also a guy who I want schemed. I want him to be the motion guy a lot. You know what I mean? Like I want to motion him into a stacked alignment. I want to motion him into the bunch. And I want to get him away from this like press coverage straight on the outside. That's going to take away from his vertical stuff a little bit, but I think it's where he could thrive when it comes to yak. Just get him the ball quick and early and let him go to work. So slot and motion is, I think, the best way to use him. But that's a really particular type of way to use a guy that I don't think deserves that like round one consideration that he's apparently getting. I think that's like early round three. There's some guys who can do that who aren't getting as much buzz as he is. Did I see Steven Selifan's wingspan? I actually did not see his wingspan. What was it? Do you have the answer? I could find it, I'm sure, but he is a super. Stephen Sullivan, the tight end from LSU, super intriguing guy, because he's a fluid athlete for his size. And I think we knew he has an 85-inch wingspan. Holy crap. 85 inches at 7'1". Huh. That is ridiculous. That is ridiculous. Um, throw some jump balls to that guy. I bet he can dunk like barely getting off the ground. Super interesting guy, intriguing. Wasn't super productive in a really productive passing offense. But the traits are definitely there, and I think he wasn't productive more so because Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson and Thad Moss and Edwards Hilaire. It's tough to produce in that offense. Do I know Rashad Bateman, the receiver from Minnesota who outproduced Tyler Johnson? Yes, I do. Watch a lot of Minnesota this past year, and in their all 22. He's going to be a top 10 receiver next year, probably likely a top 5, and probably a candidate to win the Bolitnikoff going into next year. Which receiver fits the best on the 49ers? So actually, last year I said Deebo Samuel with pick 36, and they actually went that route. That he would fit their offense the best. This year, knowing Deebo's in house already, I think they need some size. Assuming Jalen Hurts not going to be a factor, and I know Kendrick Bourne's really good in the red zone and he's really good when tight spaces, but they could use a T Higgins. They could use Denzel Mims. I'd probably say Denzel Mims. I'd probably say Denzel Mims. Ruggs dunking. Henry Ruggs dunking is the only scouting report I need on him. Yeah, that is ridiculous. I don't think he's landed yet. He could pretty much kiss the rim, and he's five. What do you measure? 5'11", and he could pretty much hit his head on the rim. Pretty insane. Receiver to work well in the Ravens offense. I don't think they exist. Uh, Tough. Obviously, Miles Boykin not a great fit. Um, I think they need someone who can separate a little bit more, just not only for Lamar Jackson, but just to be a different type of a varying skill set from their tight ends. So I would say like KJ Hill, Van Jefferson, obviously like Jerry Judy would fit great, but what are the odds of that? So I'd probably say those two early, like day two. Um, Beyond them, maybe Courtney Davis, Lynn Bowden. Lynn Bowden fit anyone's offense. Donovan Peoples Jones, who I think can separate pretty well. Justin Jefferson would fit well. But Jefferson's going to the Patriots. For the 49ers, T. Higgins is my first option. But I like Justin Jefferson a lot too. Yeah, they would both fit well. Justin Jefferson would fit well too. Like I said, he's going to the Patriots. Which receiver would work best for the Bills? And I think they need an accuracy fixer. John Brown stretches the field well. Cole Beasley does his thing underneath. I think Dawson Knox is a pretty good middle of the field presence. I would say someone who can really, really fix his like. You don't need to be. Josh Allen's aggressive. He'll throw the ball into contested situations. Some quarterbacks kind of shy away from it. He's not one that does. He never will be. And that's not a knock. That's a positive. So I think someone who can expand their catch radius, Mims, Michael Pittman, Colin Johnson, CeeDee Lamb, obviously. Uh, I'd say one of those guys fit the Bills well. And like I said, it'd be a varying skill set from what they already have in John Brown and Cole Beasley. Lynn Bowden's super intriguing. Thanks for tweeting about his film. Super fun to watch. Yeah, Lynn Bowden's he's a treat. His film at quarterback is so much fun. He was really actually really good at making the correct read when it came to read option type of stuff and power read and zone read, counter read, and all that, all the different plays. He was really good at it, and it made his film a lot of fun because he got into open space a lot, despite playing quarterback. Which receiver worked best for the Falcons? Y'all have enough. Um, Tyler Johnson. I think his pro comparison is Mohamed Sanu for me. So obviously he would fit that role pretty well. Um, kind of going back to the same answers, Justin Jefferson would fit well in that type of role as well. I think they're pretty set at receiver, so you're probably looking at. Well, I mean, obviously they're top two, so you're probably looking at a middle to late round guy. Courtney Davis could be there if KJ Hill's around. Jawan Jennings would be pretty interesting there from Tennessee. Super physical. Will break tackles like the best running back in the league. So that would really help. I think that'd be pretty cool, like to pair with a guy like Calvin Ridley and Julio Jones. Um, so probably in that realm. Maybe Devin Duvernay is a little bit kind of similar to good power guy, despite being a little bit shorter. Reminds me of Albert Wilson. Almost 0 o'clock, 0:00 here in Brazil. Time to go. Oh, thanks for the answers. Oh, yeah, no problem. Is that how they do time in Brazil? Oh, it's like a military time? Do they only go by military time in Brazil? But I gotta look that up. Lynn Bowden was crazy to watch against Virginia Tech in the Belk Bowl. Yeah, it was awesome. There's one play in particular. He gets in the open field, kind of gets the second level, breaks a tackle, like lowers his shoulder and trucks a linebacker, and then bounces to the outside to the sideline. Safety comes down to make a play, and he stiff arms the safety just like into oblivion. And it's like this dude weighs like 200 pounds, and he's like being way more physical than everyone. And then I think it was a power read play. He just hit it like perfectly, accelerate through everybody, got into space, and just smoked everyone. It's like you can't tackle this guy with force. You can't tackle this guy in space. I mean, they struggled to ever stop him. Not military time. I'm just tired. All right, that makes sense. We go at 12 o'clock, or yeah, 12. Wait a second. Wait a second. Wait a second. Wouldn't Brazil match up with like Central or Mountains time in America? Am I going crazy? So shouldn't it only be like 7:30 or 8:30? Someone answer that. Someone look that up. I was surprised he was only 5'10". Yeah, I thought he was listed at 6'1", Lynn Bowden. Just at 6'1". Um, checked in at 5'10", but I think he was at the 200-pound threshold, I believe. I think he could play a lot of running back in the league too, to be honest, as well as slot. I need him to go with the Pats. That'd be great. I would love that. Someone look that Brazil thing up. I'd be really interested in that. GM -3. Midnight. There's no way. How? I mean, obviously there's a way. How does that work? What part of Brazil are you in? What time is it in Brazil? 11:30. No shit. Shouldn't swear, but oh yeah, no, I was way off. You're right. I didn't realize how much more Eastern Brazil was compared to the Eastern time zone. My worldview is obviously very, very off. Though I know all the state capitals and where they are, every state is on the map in America, not Brazil. I did not realize how far east Brazil goes into the Atlantic. I wonder if a portion of it is in the same as Eastern time zone, the furthermost west portion of it. I think Donovan Peoples Jones would be perfect for Seattle or Arizona, even though I think he should have stayed for his senior year. I wish he would have stayed for his senior year because I'm a Michigan fan, very unfortunately, and selfishly wish he would have stayed. However, if you're gonna go get paid, go get paid. You can't hang on a guy for doing that. Um, Seattle or Arizona. I would like Seattle. They need a third receiver to complement Lockett and Metcalf, and I think they need kind of that intermediate route runner who also can make plays after the catch because I think that's and out of structure because I think that's how you pair well with Russell Wilson, and I think Peoples Jones does that really all of that really well, and it's also some like new blood. Keep getting new guys in there for Russ. So I would really like the fit in Seattle. Arizona would be interesting. I mean, they triple dipped on receiver last year. Fitzgerald's still there, so I mean, I think he'd fit the system. I just don't know about the depth chart. Kind of probably depends on how they view their rookies because I know Cliff really liked Andy Isabella, and then also how they view Hakeem Butler and his rehab. Do I think Shea Patterson is even draftable? No comment. And I will end the stream there. uh, no, I don't. No, I don't think he's draftable. It's going to be a great quarterback for the Dallas Renegades one day. Comes from a really good football family, though. But I am going to end it right there. Maybe one more question. Appreciate you. Yeah, for sure, guys. No problem. So yeah, anytime post this live stream, just get in here, ask me anything, Q&A, draft, anything about life. Who do you think is a good fit at right tackle for Seattle? Tristan Wirfs. Uh, there are a lot of good tackles. I like Matt Pert from Connecticut. I think fits what they like. Uh, run like just a mauler in the run game, and I think he took a lot of reps on the right side at the Senior Bowl. So I'd say Matt Pert, Connecticut, from UConn, yeah. But yeah, anytime I do this live stream, man, just call on, ask me anything. And thanks for guys for staying on with me, asking questions, being active. If you have anything on Twitter, you can just DM me. They're open, and just let me know. All right, guys.